As we move into the later chapters of life, many of us begin to notice a soft but persistent inner call, one that gently invites us towards simplicity, stillness, and peace of mind. After decades of effort, achievement, and responsibility, the soul begins to crave clarity, not just in our surroundings, but in our very way of being. From a Buddhist perspective, retirement is not merely a financial milestone or the end of a career, it is a sacred threshold, a moment of potential spiritual awakening, and a precious opportunity to release the unnecessary burdens we have carried for so long. In the Buddha's teachings, the path to inner peace begins not by acquiring more, but by letting go of what no longer serves the heart. As we age, we are gifted the chance to reflect more deeply, to live more gently, and to align our lives with the wisdom of non-attachment, mindfulness, and contentment. This video offers a gentle guide to help you do just that. Together, we will explore 5 meaningful things to consider letting go of before or during retirement, not out of bitterness or regret, but out of compassion and love for the life that still remains. These include releasing a larger home that has become more responsibility than sanctuary, letting go of a second car that no longer serves a joyful purpose, simplifying complicated financial accounts that quietly drain our mental energy, parting ways with unused hobbies or expensive items that once symbolized freedom but now represent guilt or stagnation, and stepping away from rental properties or side businesses that subtly distract us from true peace. Each of these changes, when approached with mindfulness and care, becomes not an act of loss, but one of liberation. They are spiritual gestures rooted in the Buddha's teachings of dukkha, anicca, and nekkhamma, recognizing suffering, understanding impermanence, and discovering the joy of renunciation. Whether you are already retired or preparing for that next chapter, this journey is not about doing less, it is about living more consciously, more freely, and more peacefully. So take this time to slow down, to breathe, and to gently observe where your attachments lie. You are not giving up anything, you are simply returning to what truly matters. Welcome to this path of clarity, compassion, and spiritual lightness. Welcome to Mindful Pathway Media. Let us begin with the first and perhaps most tender reflection on this path towards simplicity: why downsizing your home might be the kindest thing you can do for yourself. This is not just a conversation about square footage, it is about reclaiming peace of mind. In Buddhist practice, simplicity is not a loss, but a form of freedom. And in retirement, this freedom begins with the space we live in. In modern life, it's not uncommon to hold on to the family home long after the children have moved away, long after the echoes of footsteps in hallways have faded. The house becomes a symbol of memories, effort, identity. But over time, the upkeep, the maintenance, the hidden stress of bills, safety concerns, unused rooms, and physical demands begin to whisper a quiet truth: we no longer need all this space, and we are allowed to let go. Consider the story of Margaret and Henry Thompson, a retired couple from Oregon in their early 70s who lived in the same 2-story, 4-bedroom house for over 35 years. Their home had hosted family dinners, raised 3 children, and carried decades of joyful noise and ritual. But as the years passed, the staircase grew harder to climb, the garden harder to maintain, and the winters colder and more isolating. Despite the emotional weight of selling their family home, Margaret, who had practiced Buddhist meditation for several years, began to see their situation with fresh clarity. "We weren't living in the house anymore," she said. "We were maintaining a memory. And the memory was beautiful, but we were not thriving." They chose to move into a small, single-level cottage in a quiet retirement community. The moment they stepped inside, Margaret said she felt her breath slow down. There was nothing extravagant, just 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and a sunny window overlooking a communal garden. "It felt like a retreat," she shared. "Like my spirit had room to breathe again." Letting go of the larger home gave them more than reduced expenses, it gave them their mornings back. Less cleaning, fewer repairs, more time to sit quietly with tea, or walk slowly hand in hand through the neighborhood. Downsizing their home became an act of compassion, not just for themselves, but for each other. They no longer had to worry about what might happen if one fell down the stairs or if a roof leak went unnoticed. The energy they had once poured into maintenance could now be channeled into stillness, into mindful living. From a Buddhist lens, this choice reflects the essence of nekkhamma, the joyful renunciation of what is not needed, so that the mind and heart can rest more fully in the present. Holding on to a large home can be like carrying a heavy backpack through a long journey. It's familiar, even comforting in its own way, but the longer we carry it, the more we begin to ache. The Buddha often reminded his followers that liberation does not come from clinging, but from gently letting go. When we release what we no longer need, we do not become empty, we become light. And it is in this lightness that true peace can arise. Some may worry about losing the familiar, or about missing the rooms filled with memories. But as Margaret and Henry discovered, memories do not live in walls, they live in the heart. And when the external noise quiets, those memories often come back more clearly, more kindly, without the stress of daily maintenance clouding them. Downsizing also opens doors for others. Your home may become a space for a young family to begin their own chapter, continuing the cycle of life. And in choosing to downsize, you also reclaim the ability to move freely, to visit friends, to travel lightly, to engage with the world in a new way. The Buddha lived with very little, yet his life was rich in presence, in connection, in serenity. In following that example, we are not diminishing our lives, we are returning to what matters most. Downsizing your home before or during retirement is not about giving up, it is about coming home to yourself. It is about listening gently to what your life is asking for now, and answering with kindness. As you consider this decision, let it not be rushed or forced. Let it arise from reflection, from love for your own well-being. And if you do choose to make this change, may you find, as Margaret and Henry did, that there is great joy, great freedom, and great clarity waiting for you in a smaller space, a quieter life, and a heart unburdened by more than it needs. This is the wisdom of non-attachment. This is the peace that grows when we no longer fear change, but see it as the natural rhythm of a well-lived life. And this, dear listener, is why downsizing your home may be the kindest thing you can do, for your body, for your mind, and most of all, for your spirit. Now moving to the second reflection in our journey toward mindful simplicity, how letting go of that second car can open the door to deeper connection. In many modern households, owning multiple vehicles has become a standard part of life. It's often seen as a symbol of independence, personal freedom, and convenience, something we've earned through years of hard work. But as we move into retirement and the natural slowing down of life, it becomes important to question whether that second vehicle still supports our well-being or quietly detracts from it. From the outside, it may seem like a harmless luxury, but on closer inspection, it can represent a layer of complexity that is no longer necessary. Additional insurance costs, maintenance appointments, unexpected repairs, paperwork, and the mental space needed to manage yet another machine, all of these contribute to a subtle but persistent form of stress. According to Buddhist teachings, it is often the things we assume we need that tether us most tightly to restlessness and dissatisfaction. We are invited to look not only at the object itself, but at our relationship with it. What does it offer us? What does it take from us? Letting go of the second car is not about giving something up, it's about returning to what is enough. The principle of santuthi, or contentment, encourages us to find joy in simplicity, to be fully satisfied with what is essential and useful. With just one car, daily life becomes more intentional. Decisions are made more mindfully. Partners or family members learn to coordinate, communicate, and support one another in ways that often strengthen emotional bonds. Even ordinary errands can become shared experiences, opportunities for conversation, reflection, or quiet companionship. The absence of that second car creates more space for connection, more opportunity to walk, to observe, and to be present in the moment. Walking or using public transport becomes not a loss of convenience but a gain in mindfulness. In Buddhism, we are taught that interdependence is the natural law of life. Our well-being is never isolated from the well-being of others. Sharing one car, then, is not a limitation but a practice in cooperation and care. We slow down, not because we must, but because we choose to. We begin to notice how often we use the second car to avoid interaction, to rush, to separate. Letting go becomes a way of softening those habits. It's a small change, but one that can ripple gently through daily life, bringing a quiet harmony. From a spiritual perspective, releasing what we no longer need clears space for new qualities to arise. Patience, gratitude, and ease. The Buddha often reminded his followers that suffering is not only caused by pain, but by resistance to change and clinging to what has outlived its purpose. Selling or donating a second vehicle is not just a financial or logistical choice, it is a spiritual decision rooted in mindfulness. It is the act of asking, what truly brings peace to my life now? It is an invitation to live with less clutter, less noise, and more awareness. True freedom is not found in endless mobility, but in the ability to rest where you are, to be present with yourself and others without distraction. The second car may have served you well in a different season of life, but now, letting it go may be one of the kindest acts you can offer to your future self. It is a way of choosing simplicity, choosing stillness, and above all, choosing connection, not just with those you live with, but with the deeper current of life that flows more clearly when we travel light. Now we arrive at the third reflection in our mindful journey toward peace and simplicity: what to do with complex investments and accounts that create quiet stress. In retirement, one of the most overlooked causes of mental and emotional fatigue is not just the fear of not having enough money, but the burden of managing too much complexity. Over the decades, many of us accumulate a variety of financial instruments: savings accounts, retirement funds, mutual funds, real estate shares, cryptocurrency wallets, foreign investments, and insurance-linked portfolios. While each of these may have served a purpose in different life stages, together they can form a tangled web of obligations that pull at the peace we long for in our later years. From a Buddhist perspective, peace of mind does not come from abundance, but from clarity and balance. When our financial life becomes difficult to navigate, it acts like mental clutter, subtle, quiet, yet constantly draining our emotional energy. It occupies thought space, creates decision fatigue, and brings a low but persistent form of dukkha, or suffering. The Dhamma encourages simplicity not just in physical life, but in every layer of our being. A clear financial life means we know what we have, we understand it easily, and we are not anxious about what we do not control. Consider the story of Hiroshi Watanabe, a 72-year-old retired civil engineer living in Fukuoka, Japan. Over his career, Hiroshi was meticulous with saving and investing. He opened multiple accounts, invested in several currencies, purchased shares in global companies, and maintained a small collection of antique coins as a hedge against inflation. But as the years passed, managing these layers began to weigh on him. Despite having more than enough to live comfortably, Hiroshi often found himself anxious, constantly checking financial reports, monitoring markets, and keeping spreadsheets updated. His mornings no longer began with meditation, as they had during his younger days, but with numbers and fear. After attending a Zen mindfulness retreat in Kyoto, Hiroshi came home with a new insight: he didn't need more money, he needed less worry. Over the next 6 months, he simplified his entire financial structure. He consolidated 10 accounts into 2, let go of high-risk assets, sold the coins to a collector, and chose stable, low-maintenance investments that matched his peaceful lifestyle. He no longer checked financial news every day. Instead, he returned to morning meditation, long walks, and poetry. "I stopped living like a businessman and started living like a human being again," Hiroshi said. His wealth didn't decrease, but his joy increased. This gentle transformation reflects the Buddhist principle of yuppati, the burden of accumulation. Even things that are meant to bring security can become chains if they keep us tied to fear, control, and mental unrest. In retirement, simplifying your investments is not about recklessness or loss, it's about making space for clarity. Review what you have. Let go of accounts you barely use or understand. Choose peace over profit. Align your finances with your values, not with endless growth. The Buddha taught, to know what is enough is to be rich. That wisdom urges us to ask, is this account helping me sleep better at night, or keeping me awake? Is this investment rooted in greed or in care? When we bring mindfulness into our money, we begin to live more consciously. We make room for dana, the joy of generosity. We understand our limits, not as restrictions, but as loving boundaries. Simplifying finances before or during retirement gives you not only control, but the rare gift of mental stillness. You may find that what once felt like safety is now simply noise, and that letting go of the complex reveals a deeper kind of wealth. The wealth of calm, of knowing you have enough, and of finally being able to enjoy the life you worked so hard to build. Hiroshi's story is not unique, it is simply rare because so few allow themselves to pause long enough to recognize the weight they carry. May you take inspiration from this quiet path. Review with kindness. Release with intention. And trust that the less you hold on to, the more space you have to live in peace. Now let us move gently into our fourth reflection, the emotional truth behind RVs, boats, and hobbies left behind. As we enter retirement, many of us find ourselves surrounded by items that once held dreams, vehicles of adventure, instruments of creativity, collections of purpose. RVs bought with visions of road trips, boats imagined as symbols of freedom on the water, painting supplies purchased to finally explore the artist within. These objects were acquired with sincere hope and intention. Yet over time, many of them begin to gather dust. The RV sits unused in the driveway, its tires slowly aging. The boat remains covered at the marina, quietly racking up maintenance fees. The workshop tools remain untouched, waiting for a spark of energy that doesn't arrive. And still, we hold on. Why? Because these items are not just things, they are ideas, symbols, extensions of a self we once were or hoped to be. The emotional attachment is strong, not because of what they are, but because of what they represent. In Buddhist practice, this is where the concept of upadana, or clinging, gently reveals itself. It is not wrong to have dreams or to pursue hobbies, but suffering arises when we cling to the image of what should have been, rather than seeing clearly what is. When we look at that unused RV or that guitar in the corner, we are often seeing more than the object, we are seeing a version of ourselves we're not ready to let go of. And yet, letting go may be the very act of love that allows healing to begin. When we release something we no longer use, we are not giving up on joy, we are creating room for a more authentic version of it to emerge. There is peace in honesty. The truth is, many of us simply no longer have the energy, health, or interest to maintain these once cherished pursuits. And that is not failure, it is change. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, and that wisdom comes from accepting this, not resisting it. Releasing a boat that hasn't touched water in years is not a loss, it is an act of grace. It frees your time, your space, and your emotional energy. It invites you to explore new forms of presence, a quiet walk, a cup of tea, a morning of stillness. These moments, though small, offer something that no object can replicate, true peace of mind. Ask yourself gently, is this item serving me now, or is it holding me to a past that no longer fits who I am becoming? The answers may surprise you in their simplicity. Letting go of these items also frees us from subtle guilt. The quiet, persistent thought that we should be using them, that we are wasting money, or that we are disappointing ourselves or others. That kind of quiet stress is heavy, and often unnecessary. Mindfulness encourages us to meet our present needs with compassion, not judgment. When we clear physical space, we often find emotional clarity follows. The garage that once held an RV can now hold peace. The corner that once carried a pile of unused hobby supplies can now become a place to sit and breathe. This shift is not about giving up, it is about coming home to the present moment. It is about choosing depth over distraction, simplicity over complexity, and stillness over striving. You are not what you own, and your worth is not measured by how many interests you maintain. True spiritual growth begins when we are honest about what truly nourishes us today, not yesterday. And in that honesty, we discover the courage to let go and the freedom that follows. Finally, we arrive at the fifth reflection in our journey toward inner peace and a lighter life. When it's time to release side businesses or rental properties that weigh you down. In the culture of productivity and achievement, side businesses and rental properties are often praised as smart financial decisions, symbols of independence, and streams of passive income. And indeed, for many years, they can be all of those things. They serve a purpose, helping support a family, secure a future, or explore one's skills and ambitions. But as we step into retirement, with its deeper call for stillness and simplicity, it is wise to ask, are these ventures still serving my peace of mind? Or have they quietly become burdens wearing the disguise of productivity? From a Buddhist perspective, even noble efforts can turn into subtle forms of attachment, especially when they pull us out of the present moment and into cycles of worry, obligation, or unrest. In the later seasons of life, the call is not to build more, but to deepen, to simplify, to release what no longer aligns with your evolving needs and values. Consider the story of Susan Caldwell, a 68-year-old woman from North Carolina who ran a successful side business selling organic skincare products for nearly 2 decades. She started it as a passion project in her 40s while working full-time and raising children. It flourished over the years, eventually growing into an online brand with regular clients, inventory shipments, and weekend pop-up events. Even after retiring from her teaching job, Susan kept the business running, partly from pride, and partly from the belief that she needed to stay busy. But as time passed, the joy she once felt was replaced by pressure, the constant emails, product returns, bookkeeping, website maintenance, and customer demands began to chip away at her calm. She found herself thinking about orders while on morning walks, skipping meditation sessions to manage shipping issues, and struggling with guilt when she simply wanted to rest. "I was retired," she said, "but I didn't feel retired." It wasn't until she attended a mindfulness workshop at a local center that she fully recognized how much of her time and energy was still being poured into something she no longer loved. Inspired by Buddhist teachings on letting go of clinging, Susan made the courageous decision to close the business, sell her inventory, and write a farewell letter to her clients. The freedom she felt, she said, was immediate and profound. She returned to gardening, painting, and long phone calls with her grandchildren, without the background hum of stress. Similarly, rental properties, while beneficial during the working years, can become sources of tension in retirement. Maintenance calls, tenant issues, unexpected repairs, legal paperwork, and constant decision-making quietly drain emotional energy. What once felt like financial security can begin to feel like emotional captivity. Buddhist wisdom encourages us to examine the hidden costs of everything we hold on to, not just in dollars, but in peace, time, and spiritual clarity. If a property or business demands more energy than it gives back, it may be time to lovingly release it. This is not a failure, it is a wise recognition that success in retirement is measured not in income streams, but in inner stillness. Ask yourself, am I holding on because I still find joy here, or because I fear letting go? The Buddha taught that true wealth is the absence of craving. Releasing a rental property or closing a long-running side venture may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if your identity has been wrapped around it. But when that space opens, when the weekly tasks dissolve and the calendar clears, you may find that your heart returns to what it truly needs: rest, reflection, and real presence. Retirement is not an emptying out, but a returning home to self. By letting go of businesses or properties that no longer nourish your well-being, you are not walking away from purpose, you are stepping more fully into the present. You are choosing peace over pressure, simplicity over complexity, and wisdom over weariness. You have done enough. You have earned rest. And the greatest gift you can give yourself now is to live this next chapter unburdened, guided not by striving, but by the soft rhythm of inner peace. As we come to the close of this mindful journey exploring the 5 things you might consider selling before retirement, it is essential to understand that letting go is far more than just clearing physical clutter from our lives. It is a profound process of creating spaciousness within our hearts and minds, inviting peace and clarity to arise where there was once heaviness and distraction. Each item, relationship, or responsibility we release is an act of compassion toward ourselves, a declaration that our well-being matters, and that we deserve to walk lightly into the next chapter of life. The Buddha's timeless teachings remind us that attachment to possessions, roles, and identities that no longer serve us often leads to subtle forms of suffering, known as dukkha, and that true freedom arises when we cultivate non-attachment with gentle mindfulness and loving kindness. By consciously choosing to downsize a home, let go of an extra vehicle, simplify financial investments, release unused hobbies, or step away from side businesses and rental properties, we are not losing part of ourselves. Rather, we are reclaiming space for presence, contentment, and spiritual growth. This process is not about denying the past or the life we have built, but about honoring the natural flow of impermanence, the essential Buddhist truth that all things change, and embracing the freedom that comes from accepting this with grace. The peace and clarity that follow such decisions help us reconnect with what truly nourishes our spirit. Meaningful relationships, mindful moments, and the quiet joy of simply being. Our value is not measured by the things we own, nor by the busyness we maintain, but by the depth of awareness we cultivate and the openness of our hearts to the present moment. As you reflect on the 5 areas discussed, I invite you to look inward with kindness and honesty. Where might you lighten your load, not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually? What attachments are holding you back from experiencing true peace of mind? Know that choosing to let go takes courage, and it is perfectly natural to feel hesitation or grief along the way. But through this gentle release, you will find a renewed capacity to live with ease, joy, and a deepened connection to yourself and those around you. Now, I warmly invite you to join this ongoing conversation by sharing your personal reflections in the comments below. Have you experienced relief or transformation by releasing possessions or commitments that once felt essential? What challenges or insights emerged as you walked toward simplicity? Your stories, questions, and words of encouragement create a supportive community where we learn and heal together. Please take a moment to share your journey, whether it is a small realization, a breakthrough, or even a struggle, because your voice matters here. Also, if this video resonated with you, consider subscribing and sharing it with friends or family who might find gentle guidance in embracing a lighter, more mindful life. By doing so, you help foster a space where spiritual growth, emotional clarity, and peace of mind are accessible to all who seek them. Thank you for walking this mindful pathway with us today, for opening your heart to change, and for allowing these teachings to inspire you toward a life lived with grace, freedom, and true contentment.